Now before we move forward any further, I may have had an oversight here.
That's not good.
Sometimes you live and learn. Having a problem with this Whirlpool wash machine. It'll fill, and then it stops. All it does is hum. You hear that humming? There, it stopped. Now it's passing past that. And now it's humming again. And because it's humming, it makes me think that the timer's not bad. Because if you had a bad contact in there, then you wouldn't get anything. But it's sending a signal, but it's just humming. So it could be clogged. I don't know. I don't know what it is. We'll have to take it apart and figure it out. And to take this apart, first thing we're going to do is unplug it. And one thing I want to do, pulling this panel off, just to be careful, is turn off the hot and cold water. There's a screw on each side, one there and one over there. And then we can tip this control panel up. So you take a Phillips screwdriver, and these are in at a 45-degree angle. And the other side. And now what we need to do is pull this control panel forward just a 1/4 inch and tip it up. And you can see there's these little lock bars in here that go in there. We'll just tip that up out of the way. Now this is the connector that goes to our lid switch. We'll disconnect this. It's just a little tab that pulls out there, and you pull it straight up. That disconnects it. The next thing we need to do is remove these 2 clips. And what that does is it separates the back panel from the cabinet. To do that, all you do is stick a screwdriver, and there's a little lip on there. You pry it that way and lift up, and that releases that, and then that clip holds the back panel because it's hooked on there. So we'll set that aside, do the same thing over here, and it separates the back from the cabinet. Now to remove the cabinet, just lift the lid and tip this forward, and then it slides out. Alright, here we are under the wash machine. Right here is the pump, and the hoses come off of that, and right behind that is the motor which operates the pump, and the motor also operates the transmission, which is right there, that silver thing at the bottom of the tub. So the motor operates the pump and it operates the transmission. So here's our deal. We turn it on, the timer's working, the tub fills. After the tub fills, all you get is a humming sound. Well, it's supposed to agitate. So that means this motor isn't turning the transmission. And if only that was the problem, it could either be the motor or the transmission or the timer, but we know the timer's working because it's buzzing. But I went ahead and tried to drain it, and it won't drain. This isn't operating either. You need the motor to operate the pump. And then I came under here, and it's been about 20 minutes since I tested that, and you heard I just left it buzz for a few seconds. And I feel this motor, and it's hot. 5 minutes ago, I couldn't keep my hand on that. 10 minutes ago. It's still hot. So that motor's burned up. I'm going to go ahead and go online and look around and see if I can find a motor and if it's worth changing. And we'll get back to it. Alright, I've scooped out most of the water, and you can take the tub and tip it. Get the water down to the one end get all the water out you can. And then you can take a towel and just drop it in there and soak up what's left. And now we'll check on the motor and get back to it. Now there are a lot of options to consider in getting a motor. And obviously I ordered one. That machine's older, so I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money. I checked on an OEM brand new original equipment motor, $262 plus shipping, handling, and taxes. I'd be close to $300. That wash machine's not worth that. So I checked some other options, and I found on eBay this one used, comes with a 30-day warranty, and it was 20 bucks plus $18 shipping and then tax, so it came out to a little under $41. I thought it's worth giving it a try. So go ahead and open it up. Bubble wrapped well, protected. The guy also said that he tested it and it worked perfectly fine. I can see that the motor's free. He even left the old coupler on there, which is nice. And it doesn't look cracked or anything. Appreciate that. And there's 4 rubber mounts. Oh, here, 1, 2. There's 2 of them on here, but we're missing 2. And these 2 aren't cracked. They're pliable. So I'll be able to reuse these if the 4 aren't good on the machine that we have. There is a little rust on it, which I don't like, but it's used, and it was 20 bucks instead of 300 bucks, or $40 instead of 300 bucks. Spinning nice and free, and it's an exact fit for the one that we need. So let's go ahead, take it over, take the old one out, install this, and see if it takes care of our problem. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is remove the pump. Now we've got both our lines here and the pump, and that's going to keep it from leaking all over everything. Just take a screwdriver, and these 2 clips hold the pump in place. We'll do the bottom one first, and then the top one, and we'll pull that straight out and just set this aside. Now, when we had this problem, if just the pump wasn't working on this side of the motor, then we just change this pump out. Just do what I just did. Take these 2 hose clamps, compress them, move them back. That'll remove your pump. Slide your new pump on, put the hose clamps back on, put that back on, put the 2 clips on, and these clips have a little T on here, and it just goes in that slot like that, and then you turn it, and that's what locks them in place. So I'll go ahead and remove these clips because we're removing the motor anyways, and set these aside. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is remove this electrical connection, and you just pull this tongue out and slide this back. Of course, we've got this all unplugged. Now there's 1/4-inch nuts that hold the 2 clips that hold the motor in place. You can use a socket or a nut driver like I have here. These just hold those clips in place. And they're not in real tight. Just a backup for that. And then you just remove these clips just like we did the other ones. Actually, do the bottom one first. And this motor is a little bit heavy, and it'll want to drop down. So, okay, and then once I have the bottom one done, I'm going to hold the motor up with my hand and just pop this one off. And now the motor's free. And it's connected to the transmission by the coupler. I'm just going to slide this straight out. And we've got our motor removed. And there's our coupler there. Now this motor, of course I'm thinking it's bad, but it sure is moving nice and free. But that doesn't mean that the windings aren't messed up. If it doesn't spin real easy like this, then you know you got a big problem. It could be all these wire windings in here that have a short in them. So we'll go ahead and change this out and see if it takes care of our problem. Okay, with the motor out, there are 4 rubber mounts that go on here. I've got one here and 3 are stuck in the mounting plate. And then of course we got the coupler here. I'm going to pull this coupler off, or actually I'm going to use the one on the motor that was sent, and I'll keep this as a backup. But I do need these 4 rubber mounts. Now the other thing that this motor does not have is there's supposed to be a guard here. It's just a paper guard, so I don't know that it does much of anything, but the old one, it doesn't have one, and the new one doesn't have one, so we'll go without it. Here's the new old one, the new one, and here's the old one that we just replaced. This coupler has the complete coupler right here. This one has half of it, and the connector is on over here. So I either need to take this off or take this one off here and use that one. Either way, it doesn't matter. But the easiest thing for me would be to leave that one over there, remove this if I can, and just slide this in. So I'm just going to gently pry this off, and these are just plastic, so you don't want to go crazy. Very interesting. I'm glad I took this off because it's missing the inside, or actually it's on backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this on. And you want to make sure that you get it seated all the way on there. And you also want to make sure that none of these cogs are broken. You can see it's the same. Well, this one's flush and this one's a little past flush, so that's on properly. And they match up. And then you've got your rubber bushing here, and they both seem fine. That just slides on, and then the other side's going to slide into the transmission. Okay, we've got the new motor set up with our coupler here, and we've also got the other half of our coupler with the bushing locked in here. Here's the bushing, and I just left the old coupler on there. It's not damaged at all. Everything's solid. Now, if your wash machine is working fine but it won't agitate or spin, there's a very good chance that you need to change this coupler. It's very simple, and you just do what I showed you. I just did. You'll have to take this piece off. You just get a screwdriver behind there and gently pry that out. You put the new one in, which I'm doing right now. And I've got this set at 12 o'clock here. I've got an open spot at 12 o'clock, and I've got this set at 12 o'clock. So I can slide that right in, and it'll lock right in place. The other thing that you want to be aware of are these rubber mounts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. One's stuck to the old motor, and that goes on here. Those are stuck on the plate, so I'm going to leave them there. But this one came off, so I'm going to set that on the motor. If yours come off, or all of them come off, the easiest way to do this is to put them on the motor and then slide that in. Now the easiest thing for me is to take this mounting clip out, which I have done. I'm leaving the bottom one in. It just makes it easier to slide this back in. You want to make sure that these mounting grommets don't fall off, but we'll just take the motor. It's a little bit heavy, so you want to hold it from underneath. Make sure you orient the connector properly, and we'll just slide this in. There we go. You can feel it seat in there. I'm going to continue to hold it from underneath, and I want to put this top clip in first. So I get that T in the hole, and I'm going to turn it and then snap it on. Okay, I got it in there, and I've got it locked in place. I can pull on it. There's a lot of resistance. That holds it all in place. Now I can take the bottom one. It's all set up. All I need to do is get it in place right over here and snap it in. Very good. Now take my 2/4 inch screws, and all these do is hold those clips in place. But you don't want to cross thread them, so I go turn it to the left until I hear a click. There was my click. And now I know I'm going in straight. Now that we've got that done, all we have to do is plug this in, which is simple enough. There we go. Snapped in, locked in place. Okay, you can see there's a flat spot here and a flat spot there on the top and bottom there. Now we're ready to install this, and I've got the flat spot on the top and the flat spot on the bottom. That allows that to slide right on. I'll put my top clip back in and turn it. And you just snap that in place, and the bottom one. And snap that in place. And we're all locked in. Now to go ahead and test it out, I'm going to put the cabinet back on. Just takes a minute. And I need to connect the lid switch because that's going to keep any of these functions from working. And then we can go ahead and test it and see if that fixed our problem. Now I'm not going to screw this all down yet. I just want to test it out, just to make sure it's working. It fills. And now it started buzzing again. That's not good. So that means the problem probably was not the motor. So it's trying to send a signal. I don't think it's the motor now. Sometimes you live and learn, and I'll have to dig a little deeper. So we'll unplug it. Thankfully this just takes a second to take this all apart. I can feel the wires are warm too. Here's our new motor. You heard it. We just get a buzzing sound, which is what I had before. So here's the old motor. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in. This is not plugged in. This is not plugged in. I'm going to plug this in. There we go. It's all plugged in. And it's ready to run. This is the pump side. And this is the transmission side. This thing should be turning when we go to the agitating cycle or the spin cycle, or this should also be turning when we go to the drain cycle, because this side runs the pump, which is right here. So what I did to test this and narrow down the problem, because we just get the buzzing, and I get the buzzing with the new one, and the guy told me that this one works. So what I did is I hooked up a lid switch that I have, and the lid switch allows us to complete the connection so that the control knob will function. So if I go to the fill cycle, it'll fill. If I go to the agitating cycle, it'll do that. If I go to the spin cycle, it'll do that. I just have to flip that switch. So what we're going to do now, this is the old motor, is go ahead and plug the wash machine back in. I'm staying away from all this. It is 120, 110, but I want to be careful. And my assistant's going to push the lid switch, and you're going to see this isn't going to turn, but you're going to hear the buzzing. But it gets hot real fast. This thing should be spinning. Go ahead. Nothing. Nothing. So it is not turning, and the motor's getting hot. And I also took my nut driver and had her go ahead and flip that. Whoa! What? Ha! There's a short in that thing, but all of a sudden it started working. Flip it real quick. Ho! Flip it. Ho! Flip it. Ho! Okay. I'm going to stop right there. I've unplugged the wash machine. We got no power here. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the old motor. I can't believe that started working, but I'm going to go ahead and unplug that. Here's the old motor. I think there's a short in it, and it just got past that short. But here's the new motor, which is still hot. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, and we're going to test it the same way. Okay, I've got it plugged in. Now we'll go ahead and plug the wash machine in. You're going to flip that switch again just real quick. This is still hot. You hear that? Now do it for just a little longer. Okay, stop. This is not turning at all. This motor is shot. And the other one, I guess, skipped past where the short is and started working. The wash machine is unplugged. This is the old, damaged motor. I'm going to plug that back in just to double check and see if it's still working. Okay, I got that plugged in. I'm going to set it in here, and you can go ahead and flip the switch, or plug it back in, and now just flip the switch for a second and see if this turns. Just for a second. A little longer. Stop. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Okay, so you can see, as much as I'd like this to keep working, it's intermittent, so I still need a new motor, but the motor I got is no good. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can find a working motor for this.
I don't think that's going to fix your problem.
Now before we move forward any further, I may have had an oversight here.
It's not good.
I always try to diagnose, and then buy parts. That way you're not just throwing money away. And I know a lot of people just buy parts and until they finally get something fixed. Well, I try not to do that. But this motor here, it has what's called a capacitor that starts or runs the motor. If it's not working, you can get symptoms just like this has. Your motor either isn't going to start, or it's going to be intermittent or have a very hard time starting. And that capacitor is found right on the back wall of this unit, right there. And I'm looking at the top of the capacitor, and it looks like it might be bad. Of course, that could be something else laying up there, but when capacitors go bad, usually the top will swell, and sometimes the insides will ooze out a little bit. So let's pull that off and check it out. Now there's a little snap-on bracket, this one right here, that holds this capacitor on the back wall of the wash machine. There's a clip. I'm going to take a pliers, compress that, push that through, and that'll release the bracket on the back side. Now I'm not an expert on capacitors, but I do know that they boost power to start a motor like that. And I also know that some retain power in the capacitor and you need to discharge them. Well, I'm going to be cautious, and I recommend, if you want to learn more about capacitors, that you go online and look that up. But what you don't want to do, where these connectors are, you don't want to touch those two leads, because if this is holding power, actually a microwave, I think capacitor in a microwave can kill you. So I'm going to very carefully, with these rubber handled pliers and rubber shoes on, I'm going to release these without touching any of the connectors. There we go. And release the other one. Good. And to discharge these, you hold the plastic handle or a rubber handle. And again, I'm not speaking as an expert. I'm just speaking as what I know to do. And you just touch these two leads and it discharges that. You want to make sure you get all the power out of there. So that should be discharged now. If this is my problem, and that's why the motor's not starting, this is about $4. Of course, I shared with you how much the motor is, and I'm going to go ahead, pop this out, take it out of the bracket. It just slides out like that. And there's that little lip there that goes under. I'll leave this here. Now, a capacitor like this is so inexpensive, I don't mind changing it out. But I like to do as much diagnostic work as I can before I spend money on big ticket items like a motor. I may have made a mistake this time, but you live and learn. And I'm going to take this and go online and check it out. But it does not look good around there. And the back side looks like it was leaking there. I'm going to test it too. Okay, I don't know if you can read my meter or not, but I've got it set on capacitance here. And here's our capacitor. Now I'm going to put this on, and you've got to hold it on because it has to charge it up. But once we get to the end and it's not moving anymore, we should be, if this is good, we should be between 189 and 227 microfarads. So let's give it a try and see what happens. So I'd say we got a bad capacitor here, reading nothing, 4, and it's supposed to be up near 200. So I'm going to go ahead and order one of these. They're $5 to $10 online. What I need to watch for when I'm ordering it is that 189 to 227 MFD, microfarads. It doesn't even have to be the same shape as this. I just need to mount it somehow on there. But I think I can find one this shape for $5 to $10, and we'll install it and see if that takes care of our problem. Hopefully it will. So I want to double check the old capacitor, just make sure. The last multimeter I used, the batteries were almost dead. I think it was close, I think it was okay, but I just want to double check it. Now here is the symbol for capacitance. So I'm going to turn it on. Right now it is set to measuring ohms, so I want to push the function. There we go, now we're on capacitance. And I will take the old capacitor and my 2 probes, put the 1 probe on one, and like I said before, you got to let these charge up, but we're at actually not even 1 now, and it's not going anywhere. That does not look good. I ordered a new one, and this was $9.99, and there were cheaper ones than this too. But what I made sure that I got was the 189 to 227 UF or MDF microfarads. And this is going to fit right in the bracket on the wash machine. And hopefully this will test good. So let's go ahead and do this one. Now this has 4 prongs on it. This has 2, that doesn't matter. I'm just going to use 1 on each side. So I will go ahead and touch One on this side and the other on this side. Let it charge up. Hey, hey, hey! 225.8. So we're right at the top of that range. Perfect. So that's really, really, really encouraging. What that tells me is this is probably, I'd say 99% chance this is our problem and it wasn't the motor. So I'm really excited about that. For $9.99, we might have the wash machine back up and running. Let's take it over to the job, install it, and see if it's fixed. Okay, got our old capacitor. You just take it out and put the new one in just like you took the other one out. And this lip goes over the top of the capacitor, and then you just pop the bottom in. That's it. She's locked in. And then it mounts this way. We'll put this in, and then this will snap in the hole. Okay, here's our two wires. And you might ask, does it matter which wire goes to which? And no, it doesn't. But you want to hook one up to this side and one up to that side. And I'm going to stagger them like that one was staggered. And because this has 4 clips and the other one has 2, doesn't make any difference. Okay, I've got that plugged in. Hook this in, that hole there. There's a hole right there that goes in there, and this other side just snaps in. That's it. And she's mounted secure. And now I want to test the motor before I put this all back together. Plug this in. Now I'm just going to do a real quick test to make sure that fires up. I've got an extra lid switch, and so I plug that in, and we will plug the wash machine in, and we're ready to test it out. To test it, I'm just going to turn the timer to the spin cycle or the agitating cycle, and I'm going to click the lid switch just as if you were closing the lid, and we'll see if that motor turns. Okay, I've got this all set up for a test, and I put the coupler on this side so you can see that spin. Actually, I'll take this off so you can see that spin easier. The other side's just the shaft, you might not see that. But we're going to do that to test the motor. Beautiful. She's firing right up. Now I'm going to unplug it again. Unplug this wire. Now this is the used motor that I got off eBay. And actually what happened is I called the guy and told him that the motor was no good. And he was an honest guy with integrity through the whole thing. Anyways, he refunded my money. But I want to test this now that I know that it's the capacitor. And if it is good, I need to get back to him and make it right. So let's go ahead and test this one. Again, I've got it unplugged. I'm going to plug it back in and just flick the switch for 1 second. And that is a working motor. Unplug the unit. A learning experience. Might cost me a little money, but I'm thankful. Let's finish hooking it up and see if everything works. Okay, we'll throw the cabinet back on. Tilt it at a 45-degree angle, slide it in underneath the base bar on the front, and now I can set it down. There's a little pin on the back of the base that sticks up on each side, and there's an open slot at the bottom of this that pin sits in, so that locks the back in. All the way back, and then see that open slot right down there? Maybe you can't see it, but there's an open slot right there because it's dirty. And then on the back of the base plate, there's a pin that sticks up right there. That slot goes in that pin. Good on that side. This side's got to come in. Here we go. There, we're locked in. And we're locked in. This is the back plate. You can see the water connections there. You want to make sure you get this in there. Get that lined up inside there. Take our clip, slide it in underneath, right in here on the back, and then just pop it in. She's locked in. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Good. We're all locked in. Now we'll reconnect our lid switch. And this just plugs in. Nothing to it. Good. Flip this back over. And these brackets lock into these slots here. So you go in and slide back. Both sides. There, and slide back. And then we've got our 2 screws on the back, and just snug these down. Good. Turn the water back on. Plug it in. Ooh, she's ready to go to work. Let's see, we'll start from the beginning here. Fills. She agitates. She's agitated. Drain and spin. And down. Our lid switch is working. Rinse. Drain and spin, and she's ready to go to work. If this video was a help to you, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to helping you with other projects online.